Of all the wars of the 20th century, only World War II and Vietnam gets any attention, with the former being about the glory, while the latter being more about the failure, or at least the controversy. But the last big, successful war that got mainstream attention and remains morally black and white for the most part is the First Gulf War of the 1990s, where a coalition of nations led by the US repulsed the Iraqis' annexation of Kuwait and proceeded to pretty much annihilate Saddam Hussein's army. Seriously, the casualty ratios make it look like a total turkey shoot. Introducing the fairly obscure Conflict series, a handful of somewhat decent squad-based tactical shooters that were released throughout the early 2000s. The games never really escaped mediocrity, with far better competitors like SOCOM and Ghost Recon. Still, the original game was one of the first to actually cover the war where you play as a squad of 4 soldiers from either Delta Force or the SAS. Personally, the SAS is the best choice with their endearing Cockney accents, but besides the voice acting, everything else is identical. Your missions mostly follow sabotage and search and destroy operations, with the infamous Scud launchers your primary target. This is actually pretty neat, as this was the major focus of special ops throughout the Gulf War. It's definitely embellished, but when you guide in an airstrike, demo one of the many different Scud launchers, and take out a comm station, it's comparable to the actual events. Besides the setting, the other unique feature is that you can also manually control your 4 soldiers, like in Rainbow Six, who each have their special traits and designated purposes: Sniper, Explosive Expert, Infantry, and Support. You can stick to one guy for most of the game, but since a lot of the missions have wide, broad maps, it's a good idea to split up and really explore the levels. You have a small selection of simple commands: go, wait, hold fire, and follow. After all, it was primarily designed for the consoles. Still, your comrade's AI is competent at taking some initiative and following your orders fairly well. Most of the game is ground-based combat, either in the cities or in the vast deserts. The varied locations allows long-range and close-quarters action, which makes each member of your party relevant to most missions. Personally, I really enjoy the more rural locales, as they encourage more dynamic tactics and scouting. It's fun sneaking up to an enemy encampment before wiping it out, as it is tense when searching for a hostile tank hidden amongst the sand dunes. Occasionally, you'll gain control of a vehicle. The controls are pretty floaty and kind of awkward, but it adds some spice to the typical infantry combat, which there is an abundance of. While it has some realistic touches, like in the presentation, it's very much an action game than anything sim-like. You're going to be doing a lot of fighting in the game, which should be challenging and engaging, but the enemies are really dumb, often rushing towards you before being taken out by either you or the AI. The only struggle comes in the form of how many you fight, which is in the hundreds. In some missions, it becomes a war of attrition as I run out of supplies. You and your team can take an absurd amount of damage, which can be healed through using a medkit. Even when someone becomes incapacitated from a grenade, you can just slap on a medkit and they're good to go. What this means is that you'll constantly swap from your weapon to a medkit every 5 seconds, which exposes a major flaw in the game: the very poor UI. There are no hotkeys. You have to manually enter your inventory, select what you need, all while in real time while you stand around getting shot, and this can make things very difficult and frustrating. The most common ways you get killed is either through tanks or turning a corner and getting immediately shot. While the former is acceptable as tanks are often inside, part of your objectives, and you're given enough ordnance to eliminate them, the latter is just bullshit. There's no lean feature, so it's impossible to clear out rooms without taking a hit, made worse with the delayed and clunky controls, which otherwise aren't much of an issue. The difficulty is artificial by limiting you to 2 saves per level. It's unfair when some of the levels are far longer than others. While playing, I found myself getting fatigued of the constant fighting. No, not because war is bad, but the objectives stay the same and the selection of weapons is very lacking. The game doesn't bother mixing equipment for either nation, and you can't create a loadout of gear before a mission. It severely weakens the replay value. But the real tense tactical moments are here. Being pinned down by an enemy tank and using a well-placed smoke grenade and piece of C4 to eliminate it, or setting up your squad to allow covering fire as you secure a building, all happens in real time. It's stressful, but very satisfying once you pull it all off, which is a hallmark of a very successful tactical shooter, in my opinion. As it stands, Conflict Desert Storm is a game that's showing its age with the blocky models and disappointing draw distance, but I find the game still enjoyable. The combination of its setting, as well as me being a sucker for tactical shooters, has me recommending it.